what sort of person, like, why do you think people turn to BDSM? Like what is appealing to a lot of people about BDSM?
The great question of the ages, right?
Yeah, why?
I think in large part, there tend to be a lot of, kinky people are a wide variety of different people. There are doctors and lawyers and professionals. It's funny, you'll be at a dungeon, you'll see this guy and he's like commanding the whole room and he's like, you know, ready to like whip the most gorgeous girl on the planet, and he just seems like such a dude, and he's the guy. And you know, like talking to him, he's like, yeah, I got to go to work at 6:30 tomorrow. I mop floors at the school, right? And then you go into another room and you see this like woman, and she's like a human ashtray, and she's like, oh yeah, I got the week off. You know, I don't have any surgeries. Oh, I'm a neurosurgeon, by the way. You know, so like your expectations are shattered in a sense. And there's always this idea of like, you know, the media has presented like, big powerful men, and then they go like to be a sissy maid for some dominatrix at a dungeon. It happens.
Do you find that that's true? Like that
sometimes.
A lot of times people who embody some degree of power and influence want to be on the opposite side of it. Yeah. And that can be a valid thing. I think for anybody who's in control all day long, you know, we talk about like the willpower being limited, and there's a lot of science about whether or not that's true, and we're still learning about it. But I think there is a sense of release for a lot of people in this, that there's something in their ongoing, consistent vanilla or daily life that they seek release from. So what exactly appealed to you initially about BDSM? Like, why did you start getting into the BDSM community?
Yeah, you know, I grew up in a very conservative Christian home, traditional, middle-class, white, waspy Christian family. And church was a big part of what we did. My dad's family was very involved in the church that they're a part of, and so for us it was a big part of identity. And for me, I had a lot of strange and different feelings that I couldn't quite comprehend or understand or explain. And even when I was little, certain power-related and pain-related games were part of my play. You know, I enjoyed playing like, you know, cops and robbers tie me up type of a situation, you know? I enjoyed that power dynamic a little. I mean, obviously, when you're a child, it's a little more innocent, and it's something that is kind of, you're just trying to figure out how the world works. As my sexuality developed, it started to come more and more and more part of it. I remember I was early up in the dial-up internet days when you had to wait for the... You valued every boob and penis you saw on the internet because it took so freaking long to get there. I remember clicking on a link that I just saw a thumbnail and I didn't know what it was, and it looked like an interesting color, and I was just I was like 14, 15, and I'm just kind of clicking around on the internet. Just suddenly I saw this image of a woman who was like hogtied on a red bed, big giant 4-poster bed with like satin bed sheets, and she was wearing a corset, she was hogtied with red rope and a big red ball gag. And I just instantly something clicked, you know, you can tell I clicked because I remember the image very well.
That's vivid.
Yeah, so I remember that, and it clicked, and something clicked, and I was like, oh, that's a thing. And of course, when you're that age and you're still exploring, like none of it makes sense. You're like, what does this mean? And I went through many years of shame. I went to a Christian high school. I went to a Bible college.
Wow.
Actually, we were required to sign a morality statement that says no drinking, no sex, no drugs.
And you did all of that.
Yeah. When I hit college, I moved out. My parents were no longer there to kind of be like a voice. And you always assume your parents know what's going on.
Yeah.
And then you hit your 30s and you're like...
And you realize they don't know anything. They don't know what's going on at all.
Why did they lie to me? Yeah. I hit a point where I just kind of needed to move in a direction that was more true to myself. So we have, just like, you know, in the gay community and a lot of other communities, alternative lifestyles, we have outings too.
When you say outings, you mean like coming out as someone who's into BDSM?
Yes.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it can come out, and we also have unwelcome outings, in which in my case. So I had somebody, to my parents and to many people in my life, find out that I was doing this and reached out to them and said, here's what he's doing. Now, my mom was amazing and continues to be supportive to this day, in each and every way. Yeah, she's still Christian. She's just very much into the church, but she's also very gracious and loving about it. She's like, I accept who you are. I love you for who you are. I'm not going to judge you or tell you how to live your life, which is wonderful.
That is good.
But so when that came out, it kind of became one of these things of I had to make a decision and assess in my life of, is this something that's important enough to me to risk things that are, you know, potential and possibility to me to be out and about it? And I was 22, 23 at the time and felt like I could take on the whole world and felt invincible. So I said, yeah, let's go for it. So I started to be very public and vocal about it.
Like, has being out, has that changed your life? Has it made certain things harder?
The cultural weight that a lot of minority groups and a lot of press people face isn't there with kinky people because, like I said, we can hide it. Also, it's one of those things where the attitude is kind of like, well, as long as it's not in my face, it's fine, whatever, right? But there have been moments where it has impacted my life and I had to have that conversation with myself. I prefer to live as fearlessly as I possibly can and to be as out as things about things as I can. I'm also bisexual, I'm polyamorous, and so all these things have kind of collected into a sense of like, I'm different, and that's okay, I'm happy with that. And for me, a large part of it was I did deal with some shame from my family as they kind of adjusted to the idea. My mom brought up, she was like, your dad and I, when we saw the porn that you looked at when you were younger, whenever we caught you, we kind of had an idea that you might have a theme, a through line in your interests, right? So for her, it wasn't like a shock, but for my dad, it was a huge shock, and it was kind of a thing that he struggled with for a while. I had a partner who is now a very dear friend. We didn't quite work out, but her parents, very Catholic. I mean, we're talking anti-abortion bumper stickers all over the back of their Subaru.
Are you telling me that like Catholics are kinky with the mea culpa and all that? You're just like, I'm shocked.
Well, these ones aren't.
Okay, they're not.
Many are. Many Catholics and Mormons are very freaky people.
Not all.
Not all.
Not all.
But a good
Don't
number.
send me letters.
Yeah, and her very Catholic family found out what she was doing. She had a partner. They're open. They participate in swingers parties and kinky play, and they throw their own parties. And had pictures out online. There's a website called FetLife, which is kind of the Facebook of kinky people.
Okay.
It's one of many places to go, but it's kind of become the kind of central tent pole of the social media world when it comes to being kinky. And there are pictures up there. And FetLife has taken some precautions to prevent people from finding this information, because a lot of people, it's private. It's something, like I said, that has to be kept under wraps. And unfortunately, her parents found out a lot of it.
Oh no, they found her FetLife page?
Yeah, and found a bunch of stuff and photos.
That's
and
so
published
mortifying.
A long email and sent it out to everyone who knew
Why
her.
would they do that?
Because she has a child. And they were worried that the child was being negatively influenced by this.
Okay.
She lost her child for a while.
Wow.
They took her away, and she had to basically prove it. Actually, she had to end relationships because the story that was being presented was they're part of a sex cult.
Wow.
And that actually is a kind of a common occurrence actually for a number of people. And it's weird because it's not a constant thing. Like I said, mine never came up. Eventually it came to pass that this is not something you can take a child away for. Her daughter's back, but there's still that constant fear and trauma. I grew up in a community where, like, on one hand, if you go right, you end up at like a witch's coven with a bunch of lesbians growing pot, and if you go left, you end up at like a white, national.
Well, I'm going right. I'm going right.
Yeah, go right. Go right to the witches. They have the best weed and good wine. So there's a lot of people, and there's a lot of people who work for the federal government, for the state government, for the city, and all of them have like morality clauses in their employment contracts. So there was a number of people who are deeply concerned about being outed or publicly shown as a person.
Because it's going to negatively
impact their
company.
career.
Yeah.
Exactly. They might lose their job. They might lose their career. Many of these people have worked years. I mean, if you're a therapist, you've worked 6, 8, 10 years worth of school to get where you're at, masters and et cetera. And this could, just like that, take and totally ruin your credibility because everyone assumes, all right, well now you like being spanked and dressing up in heels as a man. You must be some kind of weirdo or freak, right? Something's wrong with you. And so there's a lot of people where it is a very big, deep concern. They don't want to come out. And that's one of the reasons like I try to be so public, is because I have faced some of those challenges. I'm very fortunate that I haven't faced very many as far as that goes. My boss right now, if he saw this, he would be like, I saw you on YouTube.
Great, that's really good.
I didn't know that was, and then he'd ask like 20 questions and then it would be it, right?